She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. It is Yahoo Sports Daily. We are coming at you early this morning as we get you caught up on everything that happened last night, everything that's going on tonight. We are stacked, and we've got some special guests today. I mean, we got some star power coming into the show. Kirk Cousins going to join us. Vikings Theo Jackson going to join us from Europe. So we're going to test technology and early morning time. Well, it's actually afternoon for him. Crazy. And then Dani Wexelman going to join us to break down everything in MLB. We are loaded, but we will start, Caroline Fenton, with Monday Night Football. Last night we had a double header of football action.
Do we have to?
Unfortunately we do. The games were less than magical, but it started with the Dolphins and the Jets in a just barn burner of a okay, look, it was two bad football teams going at it. If you were lucky enough to have Darren Waller in your fantasy team, congratulations. If you started him, you shocked the world. The Dolphins beat the Jets 27-21 in this game. This is a little bit back and forth, but the Dolphins get a big win. But the major story on this game, Caroline Fenton, is not about the win. It's about the injury. Tyreek Hill goes down with one of those injuries that I would just beg you, don't go look at it on social media. It is ugly. He dislocates his knee, which resulted in them immediately having to take him to the hospital. There's a lot of arteries involved. So as Stefania Bell quickly and smartly pointed out, when you dislocate your kneecap, there can be huge ramifications. So luckily, so far, looks like some of that has been avoided. But we've learned from Adam Schefter this morning that Tyreek Hill has torn multiple ligaments in his knee, not the least of which is his ACL. So he's out for the season at least. And this is the sort of suffocating moment where if you're a Dolphins fan, you're trying to celebrate a win that maybe keeps your season on track while at the same time, Caroline, acknowledging that you might have just lost the most important piece to actually accomplishing more this season.
Yeah, the news came out this morning and confirmed what I think we all probably assumed. It was one of those injuries that if you were unfortunate enough to watch it in real time or to see the replays circulating across social media, you probably expected that Tyreek Hill would be out for the remainder of the season. And I hate that for Tyreek Hill. I hate that for this Dolphins team and this Dolphins fan base. I don't know how many games the Dolphins realistically could have won with Tyreek Hill. From what we've seen through the first 4 weeks, it seems like the Dolphins are probably a 5 or 6 win football team, maybe at the very best with Tyreek Hill. I don't know how they get to 6 wins without Tyreek Hill. So that's a Dolphins fan base that I think has already felt pretty miserable and pretty pessimistic about this season. And look, rightfully so. Now you feel even worse. And look, Mike McDaniel spoke at the podium and said, I've never seen someone go down with an injury like that and be as optimistic and happy as Tyreek Hill was. Not the reaction that I expected as he was getting carted off. So it does feel like this Dolphin season is done. It has felt like this Dolphin season is done really right after it started. But I'll ask you, Tyreek Hill has been in this league for a very long time. He's not getting any younger. What makes him so special is his speed, and speed is something that goes with time. So not only is this Dolphin season feel like it's pretty much over, is Tyreek Hill's career over as well?
I mean, I never want to root for any of that sort of situation, but if you're being real, he's 31, right? He's a 31-year-old wide receiver that will be 32 before next season starts. Best case scenario with this sort of an injury, even not knowing the full extent of it, as we sit right now, we know it's at least an ACL that's going to keep him out at least a year. And then he's going to have to come back and be the same player he was. And as you mentioned, so much of his route tree and his special ability has been built on his speed, which is why even as he's hit his 30s, there's been questions. Like, we all understand his contract situation already gave us a situation where he might not be back in Miami next year anyway. Now you just got to look at it and say, if and when he comes back, who will he be? Can he be the same Tyreek Hill? I certainly hope so, but I think it'd be fool's gold to presume that that's the case, right? Like, this just feels like the beginning of what will be a long rebuild to get to the other side of it. And by the time he gets to the other side of it, he's now going to be a 32, 33-year-old wide receiver, still trying to find how to get that next gear of speed back. I think it's tough. And we've seen similar injuries. Again, we do not know yet the full extent of this dislocated kneecap and what it will mean. But we did see Nick Chubb come back from this injury. But I would say that there's a big difference between a Nick Chubb coming back as a running back and Tyreek coming back as a burner speed guy that just absolutely you have to adjust your defense for where he's going to run. I don't know if we'll ever see that version of Tyreek. And when Tyreek does come back, who will it be for? And will they have patience? And will he want to sign the type of deal that somebody coming off of that catastrophic knee injury likely wants to get? I think there are so many unknowns right now, Caroline. The only thing we know is that this season is done for Tyreek, and this is going to be a long road ahead for this man. So my thoughts and prayers obviously go out to Tyreek's recovery. I just wonder if even if we see him on the field, will we ever see the right version of Tyreek on the field again? If I had to bet my house on it, the answer is probably no.
Which sucks, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
there are some guys that I watch on any given Sunday and can say, how lucky are we that we get to watch this man play football, that we get to watch this player be the best at what they do. Like, that's what I think is so fun about the NFL is look at all of these guys who are doing things that nobody else on the planet can do. Tyreek Hill is that kind of player. A special type of player that I feel lucky to have had the privilege of watching on any given week. Now, of course, he's off the field issues, and I think that's a separate conversation and, something that will, be part of his story. But just for the sake of our argument, the NFL is not as fun of a league and football is not as fun of a game when we don't get to see and watch Tyreek Hill playing it. So I hate that. I wish him, nothing but the best moving forward. But as we look at this Dolphins team, you get a win, which is great. You always want to win more than you want to lose. Obviously, hot take from me there. And of course, there's a little bit of a gray cloud hanging over that win with the Tyreek Hill injury. But do you feel like you learned anything about this Dolphins team last night? Like the offense looked good. The offense was humming. But was that more of a product of this Dolphins offense is starting to figure things out and look like maybe the 2022, 2023 versions of itself? Or is it this Jets team is just that terrible?
No, I think that the Dolphins made some offensive adjustments that helped them, and Darren Waller coming back helped them also. We'll see if that's sustainable. But
Darren Waller,
yeah,
fresh out of retirement. Old
look,
guys need love too. Congratulations to Darren Waller. My goodness.
those paper hammies held up for a game. So let's see how they handle the rest of the season. Nice to see Darren Waller back on the field and being who Darren Waller is, which is a spectacular pass catcher as a tight end. So that was fun. How much of that is sustainable? None. Like I think we walked away from last night knowing in our heart of hearts that the Dolphins are done and that the Jets are done. Like these two teams essentially a month into the season got eliminated from the rest of our consciousness for the rest of the year. We'll still talk about them because that's our job, and we'll still watch it because that's part of what we love doing. But I don't think either of these teams are serious playoff contenders. I think we also learned that the Jets are just going to be a long process to get back to right. Like I think there is a focal point here on the Jets and their mistakes. The number of fumbles, it was just inexcusable. And the fact is the Jets just made too many mistakes to win a football game because bad teams find a way to lose. I keep saying it, and it's true. It's what the Jets did last night. It's still part of their culture. They have a long road ahead to get just to a competent football organization.
I woke up this morning and I had a list of people that I feel bad for, my empathy list, if you will. Tyreek Hill is on that list. Dolphins fans are on that list. Garrett Wilson is also on that list. I feel so bad that Garrett Wilson has to play for this crap bum team. Like we saw Garrett Wilson make two spectacular catches last night. One called back for OPI, which I thought was a very soft call. Whatever, conversation for a different day. But Garrett Wilson, I mean, like he can go one-on-one against anybody. He can catch anything. It's like he has, glue on his hands. Everything that comes his way, he comes down with. And we don't, and we probably won't talk about Garrett Wilson in the same light that we talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow, because that iteration of the Bengals without Joe Burrow is stinky, and we will get into that. We won't talk about Garrett Wilson in the same light as those other elite receivers in this league because he plays for the Jets. And I hate that because Garrett Wilson probably does belong in that conversation, but he plays for a crap bum team that won't win anything and hasn't won anything. 0-4 on the season. So I hate that for Garrett Wilson. And I hate this for Jets fans that you bring in Aaron Glenn at head coach and you think, okay, This is the guy. He can be the guy that has Jets DNA. He can turn this team around. And of course, success is not linear. And, success isn't going to happen overnight, especially when you're taking over a truly, truly dreadful franchise. But I think you saw maybe some hope in week one against the Steelers. Yes, it was in a loss, but that was a shootout. You could maybe start to see, the wheels turning, things coming together. Reason for optimism was maybe fair and justified, even in a winless season. But last night, 13 penalties for over 100 yards, three fumbles, and then you get Braylon Allen hurt. Like, I don't know where the sense of optimism can come from. The only bright spot on this Jets team is Aaron Glenn going viral for his dancing on the sideline. I don't. It's not written into the United States Constitution and into religious scripture that the Jets have to suck. Yet the Jets just suck no matter what. And I don't think that we should just, as a football society, just say, oh, well, the Jets suck. The Jets are always going to suck. Because this team should have been different. We're only 4 weeks in, but there hasn't been any, piecing together of things that would make you feel better about this football team.
That's the argument every fan makes of every bad team. It's just impossible to break out in the mud. They're stuck in the mud. Also stuck in the mud are the Cincinnati Bengals. That was our other game in the doubleheader. The Bengals just get absolutely shellacked by the Broncos, 28-3. There were 4 players over the weekend that had more offensive yardage, like yards in the game. 4 players had more offense than the than the Bengals had as a team last night. That's actual fact. That's how bad it is for the Bengals.
Disgusting.
And look, this isn't, to me, I don't know how much we can take away from the Broncos. They beat a bad football team. The Bengals are a bad football team. At some point, I'm just looking at Zach Taylor saying, what in the hell are you doing? What exactly do you bring to this team if your team, as we've learned, is essentially put Joe Burrow out there and we're great. When we don't have Joe Burrow, we suck. Like, I want my head coach to be able to figure this out because there are still other pieces healthy here. How do you have an offense, especially for an offensive-minded head coach? How do you have an offense that's just wildly incapable of finding a way to get the ball to 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL? I don't care who your quarterback is. I don't care that you're on your backup quarterback. You should at least be able to get a first down in a game. Good God, Zach Taylor. Like, what is this Bengals offense? Because right now, it's just garbage. And I understand that you've got your backup quarterback, but you're not the only team that's had to play with the backup quarterback. I will remind you, as we've said on this show, 50 quarterbacks started in the NFL last year. What does that tell you? It tells you you have to be prepared for the possibility, especially when you have an injury-prone starter, that you might need your backup. Now you got to that point, and what we've learned is that your organization is incompetent. Like, what exactly does Zach Taylor bring to the table? Because I've never felt more today than I do today that Zach Taylor is useless to the Bengals, and Joe Burrow is actually the quarterback, and maybe the coach, and maybe the entire damn team.
I don't think you're off base with that in the slightest because it's not crazy, breaking, earth shattering news that a team loses an elite quarterback, a top 5 quarterback in this league, and then takes a step back. I think any team in the National Football League, any team in any sport would take a step back when you lose a key cog like Joe Burrow is to that team. But it shouldn't be that bad. That bad. I mean, the Bengals kicked a field goal on their first possession, and then after that, throughout the entirety of the game, Fitz, they didn't even get into Broncos territory. They couldn't even get past midfield for 57 minutes of that game? That's disgusting. I don't care if you have your backup quarterback in. That is inexcusable, especially when you have the offensive weapons that the Bengals have. I know they've invested a lot of money into Joe Burrow. They've also invested a whole lot of money into the rest of that offense and really into the rest of that roster. So not even being able to get past midfield for almost the entirety of the game, that is football incompetence. You say Joe Burrow might be the coach. I mean, frankly, I kind of watched that firsthand in the 2019 LSU football season. Joe Burrow comes in as the quarterback. They win the national, year 1, they go to a New Year's Six. Remember when we used to have those? And then to the national championship game. Joe Burrow leaves to go to the NFL, and LSU's a 500 team, and Coach Ed Orgeron is gone the next season. We have seen Joe Burrow be the quasi-coach of teams before. We have seen Joe Burrow single-handedly not just raise the offense around him, but elevate the entire team around him. So I think it's a fair question that you ask. Zach Taylor, what are you doing? What can you do? Because it didn't feel like that Bengals team could do anything last night. Granted, against a really good Broncos defense, but they're not that good. They're not keep you past midfield good.
Yeah, and by the way, if your argument is, well, they played really good teams because they've now lost to Minnesota and then obviously last night to a Broncos team, that, as you mentioned, has a great defense. Well, they've got the Lions next week and the Packers after that. So how's that going to make you feel? They do get some breaks after that. We'll see. We'll see exactly what the level of panic is for the Bengals. Are we going to reach the point where it's just time to start tanking for next year? We'll see how it all goes in Cincinnati. In the meantime, from bad football to great baseball, that's right. Today is the day. You can feel it all the way down to my plums. We got wild card baseball action underway today, and we will break it down next with Dani Wexelman. There it is right in front of you in all of its glory, the official bracket for the 2025 MLB postseason, which begins in just a few hours, which is remarkable. And I love every second of that, like midday playoff baseball just injected in my veins. So we're welcoming now baseball reporter for SiriusXM and ESPN, Dani Wexelman, going to join us, Yahoo Sports Daily, Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz. And we're going to get into the matchups. But before we do that, there's one team that is not part of the matchups. And frankly, I think their fans are still losing their minds. So what are we supposed to make at this point of the Mets and not making the playoffs? Like, where are you on the Mets overall?
Yeah, it's sad. It is a sad state of affairs when a franchise spends $341 million on a team. And the majority of that is Juan Soto, your superstar. And you not only don't make the postseason, but for the last 2.5 months haven't even looked like a team that was worth $341 million, which is the second most amount of money that was spent in the offseason on this team. And so the level of disappointment is capital D, 10 out of 10, and the frustrations run deep right now. In the first half of the season, this was the team to beat. They were the team that were World Series bound, but that's why it's 162 games in baseball. And so what you watched over the second half was, David Stern said this in his press conference, his postmortem yesterday was, we didn't do enough, right? We didn't add to the starting pitching. We didn't give this team what they really needed. And Juan Soto couldn't do more. Pete Alonso couldn't do more. I will say this. They have all the pieces. They needed more starting pitching. They needed more depth from their starters. But there's a lack of cohesion. There is a lack of glue. There is something going on. And it's not, the missing of Jose Iglesias and OMG and Grimace and all of those amazing quirky things they had last season. There's just something that feels a little off with the team and the chemistry, and they did bring a lot of different players in this year. But yeah, I think that the owner, Steve Cohen, acknowledged that. Carlos Mendoza, the manager who will be back, acknowledged it. And most importantly, guys, it was the players who took accountability, and in particular, Francisco Lindor, right? He's going to be the first to step up and tell you they didn't get it done. And they have a lot of work to do this offseason. They have to work on their defense. They had a sloppy defense against teams they should have beat. And then their starting pitching needs massive help.
So let's look at the team that will be in the postseason in that Mets slot. It's the Cincinnati Reds. They will head to LA to take on the reigning World Series champion Dodgers. And it might be really easy to say, okay, this plucky team that just barely skated into the playoffs versus the big, bad Los Angeles Dodgers feels like a foregone conclusion. But we know postseason baseball is weird and inexplicable things happen. So if there is a path for the Reds for taking out the Dodgers in this series, what is it?
Well, let me say this. Congratulations to the Cincinnati Reds, right? You were the better team. You played well down the stretch. You beat the teams that you needed to, and you took it to the Brewers to give yourselves a chance to get in. Terry Francona is a future Hall of Famer managing this team. The pathway is the starters. The starting pitching has to be what it was in the last 2 weeks of the season, which is one of the best staffs in all of baseball. Oh, and by the way, in the last 2 weeks, they also led the league with their bullpen ERA. Their bullpen was really good. That's the only way. They are not going to outslug, outsmart, outhit the Los Angeles Dodgers. But if Hunter Green, who's starting game one, who's an LA kid, can set the tone, and he can, because this is a guy who is a future Hall of Famer. He can set the tone. If he can do that, he's going to give them a chance. They have to stay in it. I think that you've got to be able to chip away and be patient when it comes to the Dodgers starters, right? You're just going to wait and wait and wait and hope that they get out of the game, and then hope that you can get to the pen. The postseason is wonky, like you guys said, because a lot of times the starters aren't even going 5 innings. The average the past few years is 4 1/3. And then you got to face the bullpen. And they've got weird, wild, almost untouchable stuff sometimes. And so the Reds need their starter to set the tone, put up some zeros early, let them hang around. Let them hang around and see what happens. The Reds are feisty, and this is a group of guys who are playing with nothing to lose. The Dodgers, who spent the most money in the offseason, who should be here, who shouldn't even be a wild card, by the way, should be defending their title, have to play the Reds. That's a nightmare because the Reds are going to play loose and free, nothing to lose, house money, shouldn't even be here. And so if the starters can set the tone, I think that they can hang. I don't anticipate them winning the series, guys. On paper, it should be the Dodgers, but that's the best part of this sport in baseball, is that in the postseason, you saw what the Tigers did last year. Maybe that's the Reds this year.
But once we get past the starting pitching for the Dodgers, it gets a little concerning, right, Dani? So what are the Dodgers going to have to do throughout the course of the playoffs to sort of manage their pitching?
Well, I mean, I think that all revolves around Shohei Ohtani a little bit, right? Yoshinobu Yamamoto has been exceptional this year. If you could have predicted the numbers he's put up, you wouldn't even have written down some of the stats he's had over the last month of the season. His ERA is below 1. He's striking out like 12 guys per 9 innings. It's absolutely bananas. And so it is about managing expectations, because these are newer experiences for some of the guys. Blake Snell knows how to pitch in the postseason. Shohei Ohtani surely does. They've been building him up. But I do think it revolves a little bit around, what do we expect from Shohei? What is he going to give us if it goes to game 3? I think the reports are they expect him to be that starter. And so then he'll get the day off before the next series begins, which is important for him. So it's about managing those expectations and understanding that even if a guy like Yamamoto can give you 6 or 7, maybe even 8 during the regular season, the odds of him doing that in the postseason go way down. That's just statistics. And so preparing your bullpen, having guys ready to come in earlier in games. And this is what you'll notice in the postseason. And this is why Dave Roberts is so good at what he does, is figuring out what's the most important inning I'm about to manage. Sometimes it's the 5th inning, and you have to know that you're in it. And Dave often knows that. And so it's the high leverage guy. You're going to see guys coming in different spots than maybe you normally would in the regular season, because anything goes in October. You don't have to wait to use your setup man in the 8th inning anymore. The 5th inning might be the most important inning if you're facing the biggest bats in the Reds lineup. And I'm telling you right now, they're going to be plucky. They're going to be annoying. They're going to be little gnats. Ellie De La Cruz is a superstar. I'm so glad he gets the chance to be on this stage. We have not seen the Reds in the postseason in a long time. They haven't won a postseason game in a long time. And so this is just incredible for their franchise. It's a team that probably should be more competitive because they have higher draft picks, they have higher talent, but this is a good, solid team. And Terry Francona is a very smart man. So the Dodgers need to be prepared and they need to play sparkling baseball.
Ellie De La Cruz belongs on some of the biggest stages in baseball. So I'm so glad, to your point, that he gets the opportunity to do that. But let's switch to the other NL series. Padres at the Cubs. Where is the advantage in this matchup, in your opinion?
Home field, Wrigley, October baseball in Chicago is going to be amazing. It's finally back in Chicago, which is good news. That's the advantage here. I don't think there are a ton outside of that, and I'll tell you why. Number one, the Cubs are without Cade Horton, right? He's going to the IL 15 days. He fractured a rib. He was coughing. He must have been sick. That's the story. He's a rookie, and so you're looking at me and you're like, that can't be what the Cubs season hinges upon. But Game 1 starter, that's a big deal. That guy sets the tone. Game 1 means everything. They won't have him for this series. And then the other part for the Cubs is Kyle Tucker, right? He was activated off the IL the last day of the season. He went 0 for 3. He's been dealing with injuries. In the postseason, especially in a wild card series, it's called wild for a reason. Kyle Tucker has to be a star. If they do not get optimal Kyle Tucker, I think they're going to struggle. I am the vice president of the PCA fan club. I've covered Pete Crow Armstrong since he was in high school. It has been a struggle at the plate for him. I know that he's been hyping this team up. I know he's ready for the task, and he's got to show up. He has to be that guy, right? For the Padres, here's what I love about them and why I think that they're ready to be road dogs is because Mike Schilt leads the way. They don't slug a lot. They're not going to hit the ball out of the park, but man, they hit the tar out of the ball. They put the ball in play all the time. They play some of the best defense in the sport, and they're a ton of fun. They're a very cohesive group of guys. Their trade deadline was one of the best that I can remember in like the last 5 years, right? They have the best bullpen in the game. That's also an advantage. So if the Cubs can't get ahead, if the Cubs can't start to score and San Diego brings in their bullpen, good luck. Good luck. You're not going to win that ball game. Absolutely zero way about it. I also think like a key that people probably aren't talking enough about San Diego is Freddie Fermin. He's the catcher that they traded for from Kansas City. That's important. You got to have a guy back there who knows what he's doing, who can swing the bat. Freddie Fermin is a huge key for me here for the San Diego Padres. But I have the Cubs winning this series. I think it's the unpopular pick. But I just feel like Chicago at home, I'm banking on the fact, I should bank on the fact that Kyle Tucker will be a superstar and that the rest of their starting staff will be able to guide them through a 3-game series.
You're going to be, Dani, at Yankee Stadium, and the baseball gods decided to give us Red Sox Yankees in the first round, which we appreciate. But we all know that the Yankees have struggled against the Red Sox this year. So how's this series play out?
Oh, it's going to be feisty. It is going to be loud and rowdy, and I cannot wait to get out there. So you're right. The Red Sox did own the regular series this year. I actually preseason, and guys, I'm never wrong, picked the Red Sox to win the World Series this year. I have the Yankees winning this series. And I think in the last month and a half, you have seen them play their absolute best baseball. The Red Sox are fun. They're feisty. Aaron Judge, that's an AL MVP. Whether you want Cal or you want Aaron Judge, it played MVP caliber baseball this year. Their starting staff, there's been nobody better in the last month of the season. Max Fried's a dog. He's ready to take the ball for game 1. And they have a lineup 1 through 9. Finally, everyone's been waiting for this, that can do something when the time is right. They've got guys who can be clutch up and down, and their bullpen has started to figure it out. David Bednar, they got at the trade deadline. He's been great. Luke Weaver, been great. How about Devin Williams? Finally getting there. I actually talked to Aaron Boone last week about Devin Williams. And if you watch him, he's trusting his fastball more. You can't throw a changeup if you don't trust your fastball. You're not going to get anybody out if you don't have that pitch. And so Aaron Boone told me he's finally trusting that fastball more, which is why the changeup is working, why his Bugs Bunny pitches are now impossible to hit. Devin Williams will be a huge key here. But this is the Yankees series. They have played their best baseball finally down the stretch without Garrett Cole, without Clark Schmidt, and they're doing it. And I think that they can continue to do it. I love the Red Sox team. I think Alex Cora is one of the best minds in all of baseball. They don't have Roman Anthony. That's important. Alex Bregman's been a little sick. I don't know what he's going to give. I love the team, but this is the Yankee series.
Now, the other AL series might not be as sexy on paper, but it is dripping in drama. The Guardians and the Tigers. Guardians snatched the division from the jaws of the Tigers. So is this going to be more of a factor of the Guardians riding that momentum in the postseason, or the Tigers kind of coming out for revenge?
You said it best. That is so good. They did rip it right from their jaws. And it's frustrating for the Tigers, right? That's not the kind of baseball you want to be playing here down the stretch. They were the best team in baseball for the first half of the season. And then the Guardians decided to come along and start to get on track. The key there is they went to a 6-man rotation, right? And they allowed their guys a little extra rest, but also not having to tax their bullpen. These are all the things you start to think about as you plan for October. And we so quickly forget they won the division last year, right? This team was on the brink of going to the World Series against the Yankees last year. And they have pretty much the same group of guys, right? They traded Shane Bieber. He was a non-factor anyway. It's the same group of guys. There's no Emmanuel Clase. There's no Luis Ortiz. Both those guys are on the ineligible list. There's gambling allegations going on there. Doesn't matter. Okay. Their 6-man rotation, their bullpen, Cade Smith, plus a guy who plays like an MVP but isn't in the conversation yet, and Jose Ramirez is on this team. And I think that they can do damage. The big question with these guys is, was the run just leading up to this, are they out of gas? Like, did the run just fuel them to get in because they were so far behind? Like 15 and a half games back this summer. Are they out of steam? Do not underestimate the Detroit Tigers and AJ Hinch and what he can do and how smart he is and the baseball that he plays. He has some of the highest baseball IQ you will find in the game. And they have Tarek Skubal starting on the mound. Game 1, you're back-to-back. He will be back-to-back AL Cy Young Award winner is starting game 1. That's who you want to have the ball. And it's going to be ferocious from him. He's turning himself into a Max Scherzer type, right? He can dial in and he understands every single scenario of what's going on. He's the key here. He sets the tone. And lineup, to me, the lineup is I'm curious. What can they give? What will they do? They've been so good all season, but you haven't seen it. Javi Baez, to me, watch what Javi does. The team will go as Javi goes offensively, and it's going to be a tall task. Detroit has to go to Cleveland. That was not the plan. That makes it much tougher. And here's the other thing, guys. It's so funny. If you look at the schedule, the last 3 Tuesdays of this month, it's been Tigers, Guardians. The Guards swept them in the first time. They took 2 out of 3 the second time. Why would it be any different this time? The Tigers have their hands full. It is going to be very tough for them to beat them. But every guy who's on this team was the same guy who was on the team earlier this year. It's the same team. What can they give? What difference can they make here? It's in the Guardians' hands. I think this is the Guardians series to lose. The Tigers will have to do everything, pull all the tricks out. El Mago, AJ Hinch, all the tricks have to come out to win this series.
So, Dani, the numbers don't show a huge advantage to getting the bye versus not getting the bye historically over the last few years, right? So when we look at all of these teams that we're talking about now, we've also got Milwaukee, Philly, Toronto, Seattle that are just sitting around waiting. Which of those 4 teams do you think is most susceptible to get bit by one of these teams coming out of the wild card round?
Yeah, maybe it's Milwaukee off the top of my head to get that bye, right? They've lost in the last 2 years in the wild card round. So they are not as familiar with a bye scenario. They do have Pat Murphy, who is a walking soundbite, is the best thing, I think, to happen to the Milwaukee Brewers and to baseball and to people who love to watch an old school, like college gritty manager do his thing. And so I'm thinking about the Brewers right now. They're trying to come up with a game plan. I know Pat Murphy has some ideas for that. And then I would say the Blue Jays and the Mariners too. I've said all three teams except for the Phillies, haven't I? I think teams that are unfamiliar with having a bye, and that would be those three teams. They don't know what that is like to get the layoff, but it's confirmation bias, right? It only affects you if you lose. We're only talking about it if you lose. And who's to say these couple of days, like for the Jays, Bo Bichette and Chris Bassett desperately need these extra days to be able to come back. I'm sure Cal Raleigh appreciates having a few days for the Seattle Mariners to rest his body and get back to it. Dude hit 60 home runs this season, and most of them were when he was catching behind the plate. So it is what you make of it. But I think teams that are unfamiliar with advancing and having the bye will have the most trouble. They're just, you're not sure 100%. How do you hit go? Once they hit the field to get through the first inning, it's going to be all the same, but they're going to have to get through those periods of uneasiness and maybe on periods where they are less familiar with what's going on. It's a crapshoot. It really is. The Phillies could come out slow, and they probably have had the most experience with it.
Okay, Dani, we're going to put you on the spot a little bit here. Your official World Series predictions.
I knew this was coming, and I know, look at you guys maniacally waiting for me to make this pick. It's tough. I'll say this. I am hoping that there's a team who's never won the World Series before who wins it. And so I think that if I'm going to look at it and, I'm crunching the numbers and I'm doing my homework and I'm thinking through things, I think that there's a good chance it's Seattle, Milwaukee. I think that there's a good chance it could be Yankees, Milwaukee, Yankees, Phillies. That's kind of where my head is going with all of this. But I do think that there will be a first-time winner. The Brewers and then the Mariners. I think that they have a really good chance. I think they have the deepest teams and pitching staffs, and they have really good bullpens. But as we've seen, guys, 2 years ago, was it 2 or 3 years ago now, we had the Rangers and the Diamondbacks who got in with the wild card. You can't predict it, but I think it's a little more predictable this year. Dare I say it? Please don't come for me. Please don't yell at me. But dare I say it's a little more predictable this year because of the way that teams are constructed. But I'll eat my words, I'm sure, and someone will say something mean eventually to me. But that's what I've got. Let's go Seattle, Milwaukee in the World Series.
Hey, we're a big dumper show here. We love the big dumper.
We love the big dumper.
Caroline, you want to go on record? We made Dani go on record. Caroline, go on record. Who's your World Series pick?
Well, I'm writing with the big dumper, the official mascot and the official, dare I say, hero of this program.
That's fair.
I'll go Seattle. That's a heart pick because that's what I want. That's what I'm rooting for. But I will pick with my head in the NL and say it'll be Seattle Dodgers.
Ooh,
yeah, see,
great pick.
You guys are still way more from far outside of the box than I am. I'm just going to go Dodgers, Yankees. I like teams that have been there before. I like playoff experience. I don't like nice things. This is why The Grinch is my favorite Christmas movie. This is just look, I'm just stealing everybody's Christmas. There we go. Dani, we really appreciate your time. Follow her on Twitter at Dani Wex. Listen to her on SiriusXM. Watch her on ESPN. We really appreciate your time. Enjoy Yankee Stadium and all of the chaos that will come tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Dani.
Great stuff from Dani as we'll break it down. Coming up next, is Puka the best wide receiver in football? It's a shocking question, but the answer might be more complicated than you think. We'll tell you about it next. 2025 NFL passing leaders. That's right. At the top of the board, the leader of the pack, the top of the Lord. That's Dak Prescott, outthrowing Matt Stafford and outthrowing Daniel Jones through 4 weeks. And, you know, that Daniel Jones, it gets me to just a point there. I want to make sure that everybody understands Daniel Jones is on that list. DJ is hanging out right up there at number 3. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Colts lost this weekend. But still, even through the Colts losing this weekend, I do think that there's some real conversations about both of these teams and what we learned in a win and what we learned in a loss, Caroline, because frankly, when I watched this game, I really said going in that this was going to be a prove-it moment for us to decide exactly who the Colts are. And even in a 27-20 loss, let's get it clear here. Like, if A.D. Mitchell doesn't just throw the ball away at the goal line, this looks like a different football game. There were some dumb throws. There were some bad turnovers throughout the course of this. The Colts didn't play clean football, and they were in this thing all the way until the very end. I walked away with from this loss even more impressed and more convinced that Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts are the real deal. Like, I don't think this is a blip through the first month. I don't think that this is a moment that will pass. I don't think the league's going to catch up to him over the course of the next few weeks. I think Daniel Jones showed us that he belongs in a different tier of conversation with Shane Steichen, and that the Colts showed us that they are clearly one of the AFC playoff teams for this season.
After games, I always try and compartmentalize my thoughts just to, how do we want to discuss it? How do I want to talk about it on the show? And so after this Rams-Colts game, in my little handy-dandy notebook, don't zoom in on my handwriting, I wrote a list of winners and losers of this game. I put the Colts and Daniel Jones on my list of winners for that game. And I know that sounds crazy that Daniel Jones, after throwing 2 interceptions, the Colts 3 total turnovers on the day and 11 penalties for 88 yards in a loss. Like, that doesn't sound like, just in a vacuum, that team would be considered a winner. But I still stepped away from this game thinking, just like you said, all of those mistakes that they made, clean-upable, that's not a term, but whatever, we'll use it, clean-upable mistakes, and they were still very much so in this game until the last couple of minutes with a team that I view as a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think, and I don't want to patronize Colts fans for saying, yay, you lost, but you learned your lessons. Like, that's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that the Colts could play a pretty bad brand of football and still stay in it against a legitimate contender. You know who does that? Legitimate contenders stay in games even despite mistakes against legitimate contenders. So I think one thing that really stuck out to me, Fitzy, Daniel Jones opens the game up with an interception. Maybe past iterations that we have seen of Daniel Jones, less mature versions, less sure of himself versions of Daniel Jones, that might derail him for the rest of the game, that he can't be a goldfish. He can't, forget that interception, that's going to maybe loom heavy over his head throughout the rest of the game. And we see a bad version of Daniel Jones throughout the rest of the game. I didn't feel like we saw that Daniel Jones threw the interception, move on from it, forget it, comes right back out in next possession and leads a field goal drive. And they score on that next drive, and then they're able to stay in this game. I think that shows leaps and bounds of maturity, leaps and bounds of an understanding of who he is and his role as a quarterback and his role in this offense. I think those are all great things. I think the only loser I had on the day was A.D. Mitchell. Minus 14 points on the day with a hold on the 58-yard Jonathan Taylor run and then the touchback there. That's really the only loser on the day, that A.D. Mitchell can cost this team 14 points and it's still a one-score game. I consider that, no, it's not a win in the win-loss column, but I consider that a moral victory, to use a term that frankly I hate.
The Rams got the actual victory on the field, and in that process, watching their offense cook, I just kept looking at it and saying, A, the time we spent this summer talking about Matt Stafford's back all looks wasted. And B, man, Puka Nacua just, you see the numbers there. When you're talking about 15 targets and 13 catches, I mean, it's just, these numbers are video game numbers. And Puka's doing it week in and week out. And it raises the question of, is Puka the best wide receiver in the NFL?
No. Sorry to poo-poo on your Puka parade. I would say there's a fair conversation for Puka Nacua to be one of the more reliable if not the most reliable receiver in the NFL. Puka Nacua on Sunday became just the third receiver in NFL history to record 8 or more catches in each of his first 4 games. I mean, that's awfully impressive. And you look at week 1, he was 10 of 11 for 130 yards. Week 2, 8 of 9 for 91. Week 3, 11 of 15 for 112. Week 4, 13 of 15 for 170. He's not dropping balls. If it comes his way, more often than not, overwhelmingly more often than not, Puka Nacua is coming down with it. So I will say Puka is incredibly reliable. I think he works perfectly in this system. Is he a top 5 fantasy receiver? Totally, for sure, 100%, because I just gave the numbers right there. They're unreal. If I'm drafting receivers, I go Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Devontae Smith, probably A.J. Brown before I would draft Puka Nacua. But I think that he is the perfect fit in this offense, in this system, with a veteran quarterback in Matthew Stafford.
I think all of that is the context that's required here, because we use the phrase system quarterback all the time, but we rarely say system wide receiver. Now, that doesn't mean that Puka couldn't be successful elsewhere, but if we're being honest, just the numbers that you threw out for the number of targets, how many offenses right now are capable of giving their number one guy that number of targets? Like, if Matt Stafford and Sean McVay were throwing those same targets to Justin Jefferson, to Jamar Chase, to any of the guys, A.J. Brown that you mentioned. I mean, A.J. Brown is in an offense right now where his quarterback was 0 for 8 throwing the football in the second half. What chance does he have to even get the target share that Puka has? So if the question is Puka the most valuable fantasy wide receiver in the NFL? I think that's probably a pretty fair yes. When you look around the rest of the league, I mean, right now, who is throwing Justin the ball that we trust? Nobody. Who's throwing Jamar Chase the ball that we trust? Nobody. These are the factors of what type of offense are the Eagles running, and how does that target share work out? We've all seen that. It's not just Puka that makes Puka great. So I think if the question is his productivity throughout the course of the year likely to be the best in the league? Yeah, I'll buy that argument. Should you bet the over on catches most weeks? I'll buy that argument. Do you want him in your fantasy football team? Absolutely, I'll buy that argument. But if we're going to talk about the best, then I think the real conversation is it the best holy trinity? Coach, quarterback, wide receiver combo? Yeah, you could sell me that.
Can we talk about that?
I'd be willing to buy that all day. I won't buy that Puka Nacua is just at his core a better wide receiver than some of the other elite wide receivers we're talking about in the league right now.
That's a very fair point you bring up. I'm thinking about like other contenders for that best trio. You know, the Vikings, I love KOC and I love Justin Jefferson. JJ McCarthy is still figuring things out. You know, with the Cincinnati Bengals, I know Joe Burrow's hurt, but just when he's healthy, love Joe Burrow, love Jamar Chase, don't love Zach Taylor. That's a very fair. I can't think of another one off the top of my head. That I mean,
that's
maybe
where
the
I think
Eagles,
like
the Eagles
Rams
duo with Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, but I mean, would we really, if we were
Give me
making
the
a
Rams
holy,
over.
if we're making the top 3 on the Eagles, it includes Saquon more than it includes like any of the way that offense is built. So I think that's what makes it, you know, I'll go back to the 90s Bulls. Part of what made Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan was they were unstoppable when you added in Dennis Rodman. It's the reason the whole, like the concept of the big 3 in the NBA ruled was because we saw it work for a generation. And look, I think if we're talking about the big 3, I don't think there's a better big 3 than the Rams right now, at least not that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe, like, again, I'll go to Kansas City. They got the quarterback. They got the coach. We'll see when Rashee Rice comes back. We'll see what happens there. I don't know. So I think that the fair context here is that Puka Nacua is part of a system with an offense, with a coach, with a quarterback that make him absolutely spectacular. And by the way, that makes the Rams a Super Bowl contender, and that's all that matters. We'll keep breaking down that matchup and the Super Bowl, obviously. We got plenty to get to, including we just talked about these Eagles. We talked about these Rams, even talked about the Colts. We'll power rank next, and we'll figure out where everybody lies in the NFL. And then only 2 undefeated teams remained. Next week, Broncos at Eagles, Patriots at Bills. Those are our only 2 undefeated teams, and that's important because Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports Daily, it's time to rank things. And this will be received with the warm heart that I know people receive rankings for. I can feel it in my bones. Everyone's going to love this, Caroline. We're going to rank the top 5 teams in the NFL. Individually, you get to go first, my friend. So you will be the glutton for first punishment.
Thank you.
And here's the deal. We're going to reveal this from 1 to 5. So give me what you got. Tell me who you got. We'll figure out how we compare these at the end. What's up?
Yeah, certainly everyone will be super duper chill about all of this. My official power rankings. There's a new number 1 team around town, and it is the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning Super Bowl champions, Super Bowl hangover. Who? Because the Eagles just continue to find ways to win games. Now, the team that they overtook for the number 1 spot did fall to number 2, and that is the Buffalo Bills. The only reason why I bumped the Bills down was because they sputtered a little bit against the Dolphins. They didn't look overly dominant against a truly dreadful Saints team. Yes, the Bills are still a contender. Yes, the Bills are still 4-0, but I need more razzle-dazzle. The Bills haven't passed the eye test the past couple of weeks. But that brings us to number 3, the team that has absolutely passed the eye test since a rough first week one, the Detroit Lions. What can't this team do? They play so complete. They are so deep. They are so dominant. The Detroit Lions looking like legitimate Super Bowl contenders after an offseason and a week 1 of me questioning, well, was it Ben Johnson? Was it Aaron Glenn? No, it wasn't. It was this team, this roster, and Dan Campbell all along. So they are my 3rd team. Moving on to my 4th team, a team that we just discussed, a team that I don't know how confident I was in their ability to be legitimate Super Bowl contenders. Questions about the health of the quarterback. Maybe there wasn't a whole lot of star power popping off the page on the rest of the roster. Doesn't matter. The Rams are my 4th team in the National Football League. The Rams defense is now starting to match just how elite their offense can be. Rams are number 4 and rounding out the top 5. This was the hardest ranking on the day. I felt like there were 5 or 6 teams that could fit in that number 5 spot. In fact, I think in the power rankings, 5 through 10, the difference between those teams are a razor's edge of a margin, that there are all these teams that are flawed. Ultimately, I went with the Chargers. Yes, I know, ranking the Chargers in the top 5 after they just lost to a rookie quarterback making his very first start sounds a little bit puzzling and a little bit perplexing, but I can't ignore what the Chargers did and their dominance in the first 3 weeks of the season. But Fitz, I considered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other teams for that number 5 spot, so I'll be very intrigued to see who you put at number 5.
Who was your first team out at number 6? Who's the team that was closest to making it?
The Bucks and the Packers were my 2 that I considered for number 5 as my first team out. I know
that's right.
who you are going to say that I am omitting very glaringly. I know.
All right. Well, that's a
All of these teams are flawed.
That is a quality ranking by you. And it is hard to find fault with any of those decisions. However, that's my job, and that's what I'm about to do. All right, so as a committee member, let me just clarify before I start telling anybody anything. Let me just clarify the way that I look at these things. Yes, wins and losses matter, but wins and losses are not the only truth in the world. So the big difference between undefeated and one loss versus two losses, you got to look at the how, the why, and the I, right? Like, you got to look at all of these things. I just came up with that off the top of my head.
Non-binary results, as
right.
Aaron Rodgers would say.
We're going to take a look at just asking the real question. The real question of any power ranking, Caroline Fenton, is if these two teams were going to play on a neutral field today, who do I believe would win? Now, you didn't get invited to my arena unless you were already part of the context of it. So, I invited my winless or my undefeated teams and my one-loss teams in, and this is how it came to my rankings. Important context, because I, too, have a new number one, my friend. But that number one is not the Philadelphia Eagles. No, that number one is not the Buffalo Bills as it was last week. No, the number one team in the NFL right now, and it's not even close, is the Detroit Lions. This thing is absolutely fact in front of us. Look at the way they are cooking now. I don't care about week one. Week one doesn't matter anymore. All we learned in week one is that the NFL apparently pissed off the Lions, and now they are charging back with a roar. I believe wholeheartedly that if the Detroit Lions had to play my number two team on a neutral field, they kill them. Why? Because my number two team can't generate any damn offense, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. You can't have 33 yards of offense in the second half and have me come out and say you're the best at anything. I don't care about last year's Super Bowl, and I don't care that they're undefeated. The fact is, they obviously made a deal with the football gods, and I respect the heck out of it. It's going to get you a lot of wins, but you better figure out how to make that offense right. At some point, I trust they will. But today, as we stand right now, the Lions would absolutely score at will on the Eagles. They wouldn't be able to match it. All right, that brings me to my number three team. My number three team is the team that you mentioned earlier. I think you said that they sputtered against the Dolphins, which was being very Southern nice. It was and then that they sleepwalking against the Saints. The Bills on paper are the number three team. But by God, they look like they're as bored with their season as we do right now. Like, the Bills look like they are just like, ho-hum. Yes, guys, we are going to win every week, and it's just going to happen. And we'll make a few electric plays along the way, and that will remind you how good everything is, and then everybody will calm down a little bit. They are absolutely sleepwalking through this season, and that's fine. They're still number three. At number four, the Rams. I moved the Rams into the number four spot. We agree on this one. Putting the Rams in at four has a lot to do with just everything we talked about in the last segment. We are watching a team that, frankly, their defensive line needs to start getting more conversation. Let's pause the conversation on McVay and the offense for a moment and just acknowledge that over the last couple of drafts, they have rebuilt that defense, and they are just absolutely a terror to deal with up front. So I'll give the Rams defense up front a lot of credit. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think they might have the best holy trinity when you talk coach, quarterback, and wide receiver combo of that one thing. I don't think anybody in the league can top that. So in Sean McVay, I trust, which takes me to number five. And I debated this a lot. In fact, my first team out was your last team in. The Chargers were my first team out. But at number five, making their debut in my NFL Power Rankings.
Oh, don't do it.
The
Don't
Indianapolis
do it,
Colts. The Indianapolis Colts. Welcome to the party, Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts. They come in at number five because, like I just said, we could spend the first 3 weeks saying, I don't know. But let's be honest for just a moment. The LA Rams are a very real Super Bowl contender. And I just watched the Colts go in, play sloppy football in LA, and that game came down to a touchdown with what, $1:53 left in the game? We are talking about a Colts team that went into a Super Bowl contender's home field, although there's not a huge home field advantage there, and went toe-to-toe with them, blow for blow with them every single way. If I've got to judge that versus a Chargers team whose loss just came to the Giants? Oh, I am all in on the Colts being the number five team. Let's see them side by side. Let's see. We'll get them up, and there's my top five. By the way, any thoughts, Caroline?
See, you're taking the old quality loss approach here
yes.
with the Colts over the Chargers. I'm taking a quality win approach with the Chargers over the Colts. That's wonderful, truly. And look, I don't disagree with you. I think that the Colts can be in this conversation. But that's great if you can beat up on the Tennessee Titans, whose starting quarterback just said, if I'm going to keep it a buck, we ass. And he's not wrong. They ass. So that's great that the Colts can beat up on the bad teams. The Chargers beat the good teams. That's ultimately why I gave the Chargers the edge over the likes of the Colts or the likes of the Bucks. The Bucks are winning these games, the games that they have won, incredibly close margins. I do think there is something to that. I do think there is something to winning games close or winning games late. Same thing with the Eagles. I think there is something to the Eagles not completing a pass in the second half and still finding a way to win.
What if the Chargers beat a shell of the Chiefs in a week 1 aberration that's nothing like what they're going to look like? A Broncos team that isn't exactly who we thought they were, and a Raiders team that sucked. What if the Chargers' quality wins aren't as quality as we thought?
It's still the Chiefs, and it's still 3 divisional opponents. Because I will take the version of the Chiefs that we saw in week 1 over the Dolphins and the Titans.
Yeah, that's probably fair. We'll get these
teams
out there. We'll figure it out. Maybe we'll put it on a poll, see who got it better. We'll put a poll on social media, see which one of us got it right. I'm sure social media will react.
Did any of us consider the Jags at 5? Going once?
No.
Going twice?
No.
Jacksonville Jaguars? Okay, I'm just putting it out there. Chiefs?
No.
Did you consider the Chiefs in the top 5?
No, I didn't consider. No. Did you consider the Chiefs in the top 5?
I put a list of teams that I would consider my top 5. Obviously, I put Chargers, I put Colts, I put Bucks, I put Packers. In all caps, I put Jags ? Exclamation point ? Chiefs all caps ? Exclamation point. So I had them in the conversation, but I, even writing it down, knew how preposterous it was. They can earn their way in there, for sure. Keep winning football games, and you will earn your way in.
The Chiefs will be in there by the end of the year. There is no doubt. All right, we'll keep breaking it down. Got a lot to get into on this hour, including Kirk Cousins going to join us in just a little bit. That'll be absolutely electric. And coming up, as we continue to break everything down, we've got plenty of action we will tell you about next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Lynx head coach Cheryl Reeve has been fined $15,000 for comments on the officiating in Game 3 on Friday, per The Athletic. Fever head coach Stephanie White and Aces head coach Becky Hammond were also fined $1,000 for criticism of officiating on Sunday. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Welcome back to Yahoo Sports Daily. And Caroline, I mean, this is what we expected. Remembering that Cheryl Reeve was also suspended for Game 3, the season-ending game for her team. We expected there'd be a financial ramification. I think we expected that 2 other big-name coaches would also be a little lighter in the pockets for speaking out. But that being said, while the WNBA has come out and levied a fine, they haven't told anybody if they agree that there's an issue. They haven't told anybody that they're going to look into the problem. They haven't told anybody if they see something that they need to improve on. They haven't addressed a single thing that was said other than to make sure that they fine everybody who said it.
Shame on the WNBA. It's truly, this is a league that has heard cries out for changing in officiating, not just throughout the postseason, but over the last few years. That we have seen so many star players go down with injury because the level of aggression that is played on these courts, and the WNBA hasn't seemed to, at least publicly, done or said anything about it. Because I understand that the WNBA has a duty as a league to hold players and coaches accountable. Okay, I get it. I understand that that's what they're doing here. Who's holding the W accountable? Because when Cheryl Reeve and Becky Hammon and Stephanie White, three of the best coaches in the league, three coaches that were coaching in the postseason, when they tried to hold this league accountable, well, then you just see it there. Cheryl Reeve gets fined $15,000, and Becky Hammon and Stephanie White get fined $1,000 each for the comments that they just said right there. Stephanie White said, I think that she's made a lot of valid points. I think at some point there has to be some accountability. That's exactly what Fitz, you, and all WNBA fans are crying for. Accountability for a league that has let this go on for far too long. Accountability for a league that has allowed the refs to swallow their whistles. And now the integrity of some of these games is in question because of the lack of calls that are being made. Now the integrity of the postseason is in question because we didn't get to see Nafisa Collier in an incredibly critical game 4. Nafisa Collier, one of the best players in the league, the key cog and the MVP caliber player for that Minnesota Lynx team. You see what Becky Hammon said right there. From what I heard, she did not tell a lie. She told the truth. And then Becky Hammon also said, the only people who don't seem to understand what Cheryl Reeve is saying are the people who didn't watch that game. And look, I'm sure there are probably a lot of people listening to us right now that didn't watch that game. It was too much. The refs allowed some of the aggression and the physicality go on for far too long. And that is somebody who understands and actually kind of likes the fact that physicality is ratcheted up in the postseason. I like that. It's postseason hockey, football, basketball, whatever it might be. It's more aggressive. The refs swallow their whistle just a little bit more because it's the postseason. This is too far. This is too much. And while I don't mind the league holding coaches accountable and holding players accountable, my question is, when are we allowed, we as a basketball society, coaches allowed to hold the league accountable? Because accountability has to happen.
And that's what we're going to do right now, because this is a joke, Caroline. Like, there's a massive difference between Cheryl Reeve sitting at the podium afterwards and going off on the officials. In every sport, you understand you're going to be fined for that. You have two other head coaches in the league that were asked about it at press conferences and reacted by saying they agreed with the statements. They did not personally make any charging statements. They did not come out and say anything against it, just agreeing with the statement. And you think you have the right to fine them $1,000 for that? What are you doing? And at the end of the day, the NBA is famous for the 2-minute report. It's one of the things that I really love about the league. They will come out and give you a report every day on what they did that could have been better, what they did that was right, what they did that was wrong. The WNBA has flat out said that they do not have the resources to create the personnel to do a 2-minute report. Well, why don't you use all these fines that you're asinine handing out to all these coaches as the way to fund it? What are you doing? You look like a joke of a league when you continue to run away from any criticism that comes from anybody that plays the sport. I cannot believe the number of big-name stars that the WNBA this year has just decided every time they open their mouth, they're going to fine for literally anything and everything. And at the same time, while they are begging everybody to essentially shut up and dribble, which is what they're asking people to do when they limit their ability to have opinion on the way the games are officiated, while they're doing that, then what are they doing with any of the resources? What are they doing to fix any of the problems? What are they doing to actually address any of it? Nothing. And they're not even being transparent in the process. So what the WNBA wants all of us to do is just put blinders on and stop talking about it. You have asked, you have begged for this league to be covered appropriately, and rightfully so, for decades. And part of being covered appropriately is understanding there will be harsh criticism when the officials you hire blow it. And your officials are continually blowing it every single week. And your answer isn't to fix the problem. Your answer is trying to shut up the legends that are here to help grow the game. I don't understand what the WNBA wants. Caroline, it drives me crazy watching this league function because it completely lacks common sense and it lacks awareness to how sports are covered in the modern society.
And I think the league should embrace wanting to be held to a higher standard. That this is a league that is now getting unprecedented amounts of investment, eyeballs, ticket prices are at an all-time high and people are still coming. So I think that the league should embrace that while that growth comes with wonderful benefits of money and recognition and conversation that we are having, visibility, that also comes with more accountability. That's all we want, that a league that we love, a league that we both cover, that we just want this to be fair. And look, Caitlin Clark has been, banged around over the last couple of years. We saw Nafisa Collier, and we just saw a tweet that popped up that the league didn't find any sort of data or any sort of correlation between officiating and injuries. Really? I mean, I don't really need a super smart data calculator, numbers, equations, whatever, to tell me what my eyes can tell me. And my eyes can tell me and show me that things are getting way too aggressive. And there are, maybe hard hits that accumulate over time, or maybe all it takes is one hard hit to knock a player out for the postseason. That I can see, I can watch with my own eyes watching these games. Like, why is Fee on the court for 30 minutes and she shoots 2 free throws? Like, if you are officiating the game correctly, then players that play an overwhelming number of minutes, an overwhelming majority of the game, are probably getting fouled more than once or twice. That just doesn't make sense to me. If we want to talk about data, if we want to talk about numbers, then let's just look at the box score and see how infrequently some of these players are going to the free throw line.
When you as a league, and Kathy Engelbert, anytime you want to come on and talk to us about this directly, I would welcome that conversation. Let me say that loudly. I'm not saying this because she's not here.
I'm happy to be wrong.
I think what has been lost by the WNBA is that when you become more known for fines to silence than fixing problems, what you really do is you feed conspiracy theorists. And you can say you don't care and that you're not going to listen to the outside noise and all of these things. But you feed narratives, intentionally or not, when you are not transparent in your process. So when your superstar players have podcasts and you choose to find them every time they say something that you just don't think is right, when coaches agree with statements and they get fined for it, and you become known for this at every single pass, and along the way, you aren't transparent about what you're finding, what you're seeing, what you're doing, and how you're doing it, the perception becomes reality that we all start to think that, hey, maybe the W doesn't want us to look into this or want anyone to talk about it because there's a problem and they can't fix it. Maybe suddenly what you do is you speak to the conspiracy theorists that might believe that Indiana's massive free throw discrepancy in game 3 or game 2 of the series was to force, or game 4 of the series was to force a game 5. Yeah. Thank you. I'll get it right. You feed the conspiracy theories that game 4 was essentially fixed by the league. And look, that's not something anybody wants to sit there and have a conversation about. But when your refs call it completely one-sided and then you find everybody involved in the process, what you do is you feed into conspiracy theories. If you put out a 2-minute report, if you tell everybody transparently what you're finding, if you talk about the officiating, you fix all of that. I just think what the W doesn't understand more often than not is that they're actually making their own lives more difficult in the way they're being covered moving forward. We'll keep breaking it down. This show, obviously, tonight, a massive Game 5, late tip. I think it's 9:30 Eastern. Massive Game 5 tonight between Vegas and the Fever. We'll see how that one plays out. In the meantime, coming up, we got a superstar quarterback that will join us in a little bit, and Lamar Jackson out next week. We'll tell you about it. Ravens coach John Harbaugh on quarterback Lamar Jackson and his hamstring injury. This is the quote Ian Rappaport put up. The way I know Lamar, if he could have gone in the game, he would have been in the game. That's how Lamar is. Ian follows it up by saying that does open the door to Jackson missing next Sunday versus the Texans. So now you've got the possibility of a 1-3 Ravens team taking on the Texans without Lamar Jackson and falling to 1-4. This feels like the worst case scenario possible for the Ravens, Caroline.
I mean, there's a reason why Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP and probably could have been a 3-time MVP had Josh Allen not won it last year. And it's because I view MVP like the most important player to their respective team. You take that player away, and it is a much different football team. That's exactly how I view Lamar Jackson's impact on this Baltimore Ravens team, especially this iteration of the Baltimore Ravens that can't stop a nosebleed defensively. The only way this Ravens team has won games or will win games moving forward is just by scoring a whole mess of points. So what would make me feel optimistic that this Ravens team can score a whole mess of points if Cooper Rush is, no disrespect to Cooper Rush, but if Cooper Rush is now has to step in as your starter?
Look, there are Cowboys fans a few years ago that were trying to tell the world the Cowboys didn't need Dak anymore because they had Cooper Rush. So I would like all of those Cowboys fans.
Cooper Rush was kind of balling in Dallas, though. Let me just say that.
Okay.
He did look pretty good.
All the more reason that you don't use a small sample size to decide on who's a great quarterback. See, just making my arguments and everything. Look, they're a shell of the offense without the mobility of Lamar Jackson. And that's just, I think, a pretty easy fact. Moving to 1-4 feels catastrophic, but the more I think about it with the Ravens, the more I wonder if it really is catastrophic. Not because 1-4 is an ideal place to be, but I looked up their schedule, and what's pretty remarkable is that they still have 5 of their 6 division games ahead of them. They still have 2 games against the Steelers ahead of them. They still have 1 game against the Browns, and then they have 2 games against the Bengals, who, by the way, also look like they're a disaster. So I don't think that the season is necessarily lost for the Ravens, but as somebody that consistently week in and week out has said, it's not lost, there's still hope. I feel like I'm at this point the string quartet on the Titanic. I'm watching the thing sink, and I'm standing there with the captain, and I'm like, I can turn around, got it? Like, I don't know how much longer I can stay on the boat.
I looked it up, and only one team in the history of the NFL that started the season 1-3 has ever won the Super Bowl, and that was the 2001 New England Patriots. No team has ever started the season 1-4 and has ended up winning the Super Bowl. That's what the expectations of this Ravens team is. Winning the Super Bowl. Getting to the Super Bowl, at least, please, win a playoff game. Or at least consistently start winning playoff games. So while there is still so much season left, and while the AFC North does still feel incredibly winnable, and while the Ravens have majority of their division games coming up on the schedule, like I'm not closing the book on the Baltimore Ravens if they fall to 1-4. But I'm gonna start doing this. I'm gonna start closing it just a little bit. I'm not gonna slam it shut, but I'm gonna start closing it just a little bit because history would tell us that this kind of start does not breed a whole lot of confidence or shouldn't breed a lot of confidence in your ability to win the big one and to get to the Super Bowl, which is, of course, is the expectation in Baltimore. Another thing, though, is like, let's throw the record out the window. Let's throw 1-3, 1-4, the division out the window, whatever it might be. Does this defense look like a team that can win a Super Bowl? Doesn't look like it to me. Especially as injury-ridden as the Ravens have been, even at full strength, they weren't good enough. Now they're down, 7 starters? That's not a defense that can get you to or win you a Super Bowl. So all of those things combined, the 1-3 record, possibly 1-4 if, in fact, Lamar can't go. I haven't seen an update on Lamar since Sunday after that game, but I'm sure we'll get an update on Lamar here soon. If Lamar can't go, I would go ahead and put my money on 1-4 Ravens. Like the record, the defense, the fourth quarter collapses, all of those things don't make me feel like the Ravens are a Super Bowl contender. I have called the Ravens a Super Bowl contender all summer long going into the season. Now I keep banging on the table that I can't trust them to get to the Super Bowl, or sure as heck not winning a Super Bowl. Not this version of this team.
Super Bowl, no, but playoffs. Look, it's so you're telling me there's a chance. 6 teams since the 1970.
But Ravens
6
in the
teams have made the playoffs. Well, I mean,
like,
but
that's bare minimum.
Yeah, but you're right. That is bare minimum. But we talk about playoffs, and this is just my lecture to, I'm fansplaining right now, which is dangerous. But I'll acknowledge that. Like, we talk about the playoffs like the playoffs suck. And I would just beg you, if you're at a spot where you are just blasé with making the playoffs, I would love to switch shoes with you anytime. Like, if you want to know what blasé feels like, have a 25-year period where you only go to the playoffs twice and only have 2 winning seasons. Like, I don't think that we need to talk about the Ravens as an abject disaster if all they do is get into the playoffs. I think they still have a shot at the playoffs. You're right. This team is decimated with injuries too. And now I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to be a beacon of darkness. The Lions last year killed any other team ever having excuses for injuries derailing your season. I mean, that's one of the most injured teams we can ever remember, not to their starting quarterback, but to basically everybody else, and they were still in it all the way to the very end. So I'm not buying the Ravens. Like, if Ravens fans or the team want to use injuries as an excuse, I'm not buying it. I just think they still have a shot at the playoffs. You're right. They do not look like a Super Bowl caliber team. Like today, neutral field, I would take the Colts over the Ravens. Today, as these two teams have played so far, I'm not sure the Ravens can stop anybody, and that's stunning for Baltimore. But I think the playoffs are still there. Let me ask you this though.
Playoffs are still there.
Yeah, I'm gonna stack something because we got the reports a couple of weeks ago that one of the teams that was interested in drafting Shedeur was the Baltimore Ravens, and he said absolutely not. I don't want to go there. I do not want to back up Lamar, and instead he ends up going to Cleveland. Now, when we see this, and you realize that, Cooper is the quarterback this week, and you think about just who he is and what there is there for him. If Lamar had been drafted, if he'd chosen to tell the Ravens, yeah, I'll back up. If Shedeur had been drafted by the Ravens, if he'd chosen to go there and say, yeah, I'll back up Lamar, I mean, he'd be playing this week. He'd be having a real chance to show the world on a really good team what it looks like, which is why, as much as Schefter here saying it, they let him know he didn't want to be Lamar's backup. Right now, that feels like it was a horrible mistake for the young man.
You have to think that, and you have to think that anyone, Shedeur or, any quarterback in the league would probably be rethinking that decision and thinking, man, I'm going to be on the bench this weekend, whereas in an alternate universe, I could be a starting quarterback getting my opportunity to prove to everyone that I can be a legitimate starter in this league. I think anybody would regret that. I think that's maybe a cautionary tale to every player and every father of every player who wants to play GM and pick and choose wherever their son gets drafted. That drives me crazy. Same thing with Caleb Williams. We saw those reports come out that allegedly Caleb Williams' dad was looking into the XFL over going to the Chicago Bears. Like, are you crazy? Are you kidding me? So maybe we just let this process pan out the way that it's supposed to. But I digress. I also have to think about how Baltimore feels about that decision. Because I think anyone would regret saying, I don't want to go to Baltimore and be Lamar's backup if, in fact, Lamar can't go. Again, that's not confirmed yet. We're just living in a world that he can't go. I wonder how Baltimore feels about that. Would Baltimore feel better about their chances against the Texans this weekend if Shedeur was their backup quarterback over Cooper Rush? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. Because I don't know what Shedeur is at this point, but I would at least, just based off of the hype, the talent that we've seen Shedeur have. Like, we saw great things from Shedeur against the Panthers in the preseason game. We also saw some not great things in the preseason, but we did see flashes. If I ran the Baltimore Ravens, I would feel better about my chances this weekend with Shedeur versus Cooper Rush.
I think my only argument is that Cooper has seen a lot of football. I do like vets that have come in and have seen a lot of football.
That's true.
He's also played a lot of bad football. The hardest part about all of this is what we are doing with Shedeur and what we will do for the rest of the season is we are judging. We are all judging Shedeur based on, in our minds, what we think he could be. And I wish we had the body of evidence to know what that looks like. And that's where, at this point in his career, Shedeur, very early, reminds me so much of Tim Tebow and then the number of conversations that were out there about, well, why not this and why not that? Why not this? And it's like, well, we got to see it. We got to see it. We got to see Shedeur to know. And I think that's not the Browns' problem. That's not Cleveland's problem to deal with. I do wonder, though, if you're Shador now looking at it saying, could have gone to a stable organization with a really good head coach, learned behind one of the best quarterbacks in the game, had some flashes and opportunities possibly to get in, worked on my skills, gotten better, put it on tape with the Ravens. Like, it feels like right now, hindsight's 2020, we'd have an opportunity. Rex Ryan, by the way, had plenty to say about Shador. I don't know if you saw these quotes, but Rex came out and had he had to say his piece on Shador, essentially saying, hey, you got the talent to be the quarterback. You should be embarrassed that you're not the quarterback right now. And the funny thing is there are some people that have run with this. A local radio person has come in and said he thinks that Browns are feeding info to Rex, and Rex has knowledge on this. Caroline, if you would allow me a moment here. Rex, always very kind to me. Rex has been very kind to me. I've had the opportunity to work with Rex a handful of times. I will never forget a get-up meeting when I was hosting the show where I sat there for an hour while Rex spent the entire time telling everybody he was a better coach than any of the guys in the NFL. Like, Rex marches to the beat of Rex's drummer. And the way Rex sees the world is very focused. I'll say it that way, to say it politely. I think Rex just kind of lives in this dream world of Rex. And in his dream world, he thinks Shador should go out and start right now. What is he basing that on? Like, I see ESPN Cleveland out there, promoting that, and Rizzo coming out and making his statements. This to me this is a big old nothing burger. Rex is out here just running his mouth like Rex does, with delusions that Rex has that are based on just Rex being in Rexland.
Yeah, Rex was the one that also called Mike McDaniel nerd boy. So sometimes he just says stuff. Do we buy that? Like, do we buy that was fed to Rex Ryan and that Shador Sanders is not working hard enough or doing enough to earn the job? I lean no, only because there is another quarterback in that room who also isn't getting opportunities. Like, have we forgotten about Dylan Gabriel in all of this? Have we forgotten that Dylan Gabriel was drafted over Shador Sanders? So are both of them not doing enough? Are both of them not working hard enough to get more opportunities, even when Joe Flacco is absolutely stinky? Like, if I would maybe buy into it a little bit more and believe it a little bit more if it was just Joe Flacco and Shador Sanders in that room. But it's not. I would buy into it just a little bit more if Shador Sanders was higher than Dylan Gabriel in the pecking order. But from what we know right now, he's not. So I can't buy into both of those guys aren't working hard enough and doing what they need to do to take the starting job from Joe Flacco.
Now, I don't feel bad for Shador at this point. I feel bad for Dylan. I feel bad that we are forgetting about Dylan Gabriel being drafted 2 full rounds higher than Shador Sanders. It's what I said the day that Shador was drafted. Man, this is going to be really difficult for Dylan. I stand by that. From talking about quarterbacks to talking to a quarterback, let's talk to Kirk Cousins. Going to hang out with us next. We'll figure out what Kirk thinks of the Falcons and how he's adjusting to his new role in Atlanta. Spartans, join the We Give Blood drive and help MSU dominate in donations, bleed green, save lives, and make Sparty proud. That is the We Give Blood drive that's happening right now, which is why we're about to talk to Kirk Cousins. He's hanging out with us. We're going to talk about the Falcons. We're going to talk about Michigan State. We're going to talk about everything with Kirk. Thanks for joining us. You're confident about Sparty absolutely winning this blood drive. First and foremost, I think I'm supposed to say go green so that you can then respond.
Yeah, go white.
There we go. And now we got a weekend coming. There we go. Michigan State stacking up against Nebraska. I mean, donating blood also. Give me a little side bet. How are we feeling about Sparty going up against the Cornhuskers? Their battle of 3-1s.
So on the field, I think it's always tough going to Nebraska, but I like our chances. I think we're off to a good start. I like Jonathan Smith as our head coach and what he's building there. Off the field, it's a tough test because Nebraska won the We Give Blood drive last year that Abbott and the Big Ten have partnered to create. This is now season 2 of that blood drive. Nebraska is currently ranked 2nd of the 18 Big Ten teams. Michigan State is 7th in donating the most blood. So we got some work to do, but just kind of trying to get the word out about Abbott and the Big Ten's We Give Blood drive and encouraging everybody to go to big10.org/Abbott to make a donation, log their donation. 25,000 people have already donated, which is more than last year's entire year. So it's a growing program, and we're excited. There's a national blood shortage, and so it's important that we get out and donate this blood to meet all kinds of different healthcare needs. And so it's great to see what Abbott and the Big Ten have been able to do, partnering up and getting the word out. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
Yeah, you gotta love any kind of competition, but especially one that's for a great cause, as is the We Give Blood drive. So go green. I want to transition into your NFL career, though. The Falcons now sitting at 2-2, and you have had a front row seat to watch Michael Penix Jr.'s development. What do you make of his start in year 2?
He's playing great. Had an awesome game yesterday. Did a really good job, specifically on third down and critical moments, making plays with his arm, with his legs, made great decisions with the football. Especially considering how young of a player he is still in this league. I think he's really playing beyond his years. And like you said, I've got a front row seat to be able to, watch and encourage and just kind of support the best I can.
That being said, you also take a lot of pride in your job. This is different for you. How have you sort of managed this role in this situation for you and what's being asked of you in this team environment?
Yeah, it's bringing back memories of when I was in Washington and supporting Griff my first few years there, and even going back to college when I was backing up Brian Hoyer. So I think it's important to just you still study, you still prepare, you still get all you can throughout the week to be ready to go if need be, but you also understand all that's on the guy starting and how you just want to be a great support to him and be an asset to him and to the team. And I think it's an important role as a backup to be able to not only be ready to contribute on the field, but to be a contributor, on the sidelines as well.
Hey, you bring up some of your time in college and early in the NFL. Feels like since then, so much has changed in the game of football, specifically at the quarterback position. We've seen a lot of quarterbacks at the college level struggle so far this year. We've seen kind of that translation from the college level to the NFL not always be the most seamless transition. What do you make of the way that the quarterback position is being developed in today's college football?
Yeah, I think football and the way it's structured and what you're asking of the quarterback, it always will evolve. I think that's just a part of this great game. But, it's kind of a smattering. You get quarterbacks who, make a great adjustment from college to the pros and develop really well. Others who takes a little longer, but eventually they do, become great players, even if it looked rocky at first. And then you have guys who, just never really quite find the difference they got to make to be able to have their game translate from college to the pros. So it's all of the above. And I think that because football is such a team game, many times it is the environment around them. When you go to a place that's really well coached, they've drafted well, they've got a support system around you, it makes a mean difference in being able to play well. And then other times, you don't have that support system and it's difficult. And so we all are dependent on the people around us. And I think you see it so much in football, just how it's such a team sport.
There's also an element, though. I mean, Kirk, you're a music guy, right? So you'll appreciate this. U2, and Bono said this years ago. Bono said it took U2 3 records to figure out who they were as a band. And that in the modern climate, they wouldn't have even gotten 3 singles. I think about that because right now we're a month into the NFL season, and all I see everywhere are hot takes on rookie development within weeks. Like we are just poised to react to whatever Jackson Dart does, for example, like it's world beating or it's the end of the world, depending on the outcome. How can quarterbacks in the NFL develop when there's just no patience for anything anymore?
Well, if the patience is on the outside, or the impatience, I should say, is on the outside, then that's one thing. I think it's important that the organization stay committed to the longer term plan and to the process, and to have the patience that's needed to develop. I know certainly in my own personal story, I more or less sat for 2.5, 3 years before I really had a chance to be the guy for an entire season. And even in those 2.5, 3 years when I did play, it was some good, some bad. And so if you had, kind of made a decision off those first couple of years, my career never would have gotten to go the direction that it went. And so I think that, patience is an important part of it all, but every organization has to do what they feel is best. And sometimes that requires being impatient and saying, oh, we're going to go out there and we're going to learn under fire. And the best experience is to just be out there, good or bad. And so there's an argument to be made for that decision too. But I certainly think that when you evaluate, you have to factor in, well, wait a minute, how long have they been in the system? How experienced are they? Who's around them? Do they have the support system they need? And if not, what you want it to be, then there needs to be some grace given. And again, each organization kind of has their own way of processing that.
You have been known throughout the entirety of your career for perseverance, for mental toughness. How has this year or this stint in Atlanta kind of challenged that mental toughness?
Yeah, football is a game that's going to test you. And that goes back to even playing, as a kid, before even high school football. You realize that this sport's a little different than the other ones. And so all my journey, like you said, has been, curveballs or challenges or things I didn't expect. And certainly, the process of coming to Atlanta and now being the backup here in 2025 was, a bit of a curveball, but that's the way life goes. And you just handle it the best you can and take the next step. And right now it's being a great support to Mike, to our offense, to our team, and preparing as best I can, but also providing support as best I can. And that's the role I'm in, and that's the role I'm going to embrace. And so that's where we are right now.
On social media about a week ago, you posted a picture of you and your wife standing inside US Bank Stadium. The caption was lots of memories, and that's obviously from your time with the Vikings. I know it's hard to pick one, but is there one Vikings memory that really stands out as your favorite that you think of?
What a great question. Like you said, there are a lot of them. I think in that stadium specifically, the one that first came to mind would be the largest comeback in NFL history when we were down to the Colts 33-0 at halftime. And I was just hoping that we could, find something in the second half that we could take with us into the next week as, to feel good about. And next thing you know, I look up and it's a 2-score game and then a 1-score game. And then we tied the game and go to overtime and kick a field goal to win in overtime. So, that was a special one and one that'll stick with me for as long as I live.
What's the most important thing for you right now in your career?
Well, I think, you got to focus on what's my role and doing my job right now. And so in the stage I'm in, it's being a great backup, understanding you are one play away. You've got to stay ready. If something were to happen and you go in, you've got to be able to play at a level that keeps our team going in the right direction. But at the same time, if you're not called upon, you need to be a great support, be a great encourager, provide input when you can to teammates, to coaches, things you see. And I don't take that role lightly, whether it's speaking to the quarterback room, whether it's saying something to a receiver, a tight end, encouraging or coaching, whatever you may be able to offer. All of it's valuable. And so you try to do the best you can in that role. And I think that's the job I have to do.
All right, so again, knowing you're a music guy, we were excited to talk to you about Bad Bunny. He's the halftime show. Okay, but last year with the Falcons, on your birthday, you got control of the practice playlist. They posted it online. So We got a lot on there, a lot of stuff on there that we like. You and I are somewhat similar in age. I'm a little older than you, but there's a lot on here, Kirk, that I resonate with. Who's the Kirk Cousins dream Super Bowl halftime performer?
What a great question. I've never been asked that. My first ballot choice would be Switchfoot. They're my all-time favorite band. I love them so much. I had them come to my house for a private concert a few summers ago, which was a blast. So and that started a tradition now where I get a band of my own choosing to come to my house each summer for a private concert. So we've done that for a few years, and highly recommend it if you can get your favorite bands to come to your house for a concert. I highly endorse that. But
Kirk,
could we get the invite to your house for the concerts? I don't know if they're coming to my house.
If you like my kind of music, you're always welcome. You're always welcome if you can tolerate my kind of music. Some of my teammates probably wouldn't even take me up on the offer because they wouldn't like it. But if you're into it, you're always welcome.
Yeah, I as somebody that was lucky enough to tour the world in a band, it's not cheap to get your favorite band to come to somebody's house for a concert. I love that, Kirk. I love that. All right, so you guys can check it out. Obviously, big10.org/Abbott is how you submit the proof of your donation. big10.org/Abbott. Kirk, you came on the show, so I'm going to go give. I'll give some blood. I'll put it out there. We'll put it on social. We'll show everybody, and I'll do it for Michigan State. Let's go. So I'm all in
there
on
we
this.
Go.
We appreciate your time. You know, we're getting them up. Number 7 is not good enough, Kirk. We got to get you to number 1, dude. We can do this.
We can do it. Spartans are known for their grit, their resilience. We got to find a way to climb the rankings here in the We Give Blood drive, and I want us on December 6th at the Big Ten Championship game, not only playing on the field, but also having them announce that we as a school, as an alumni base, gave the most blood. So we'll see where it all shakes out. But thanks for having me on with a chance to kind of promote this program for the Big Ten and Abbott, and looking forward to following it all season.
Thanks for your time, Kirk. We appreciate you, bud.
All right.
Thanks, Kirk.
All right, it is time to check out the vibes across college football. We'll give you the Vibe Index next on Yahoo Sports Daily. Let's go home, Dan Lanning yelled before racing towards the student section that he preferred in Happy Valley. A whiteout that had a little spattering of green in the corner after a massive win for Oregon. Caroline Fenton, Jason Fitz on Yahoo Sports Daily. And the vibes were high in Happy Valley. Frankly, the vibes were high across the board. It was a great game to watch. It was an electric end to college football Saturday night where you had to have 2 TVs to watch 2 epic games come down to the wire. Everything you could hope for and more. So, Caroline, let's break down some vibes. We know the vibes are high with Dan Lanning. Let's check some vibes for some other teams. The Vibe Index, where are we as we do the Vibe, the FVI, the Football Vibe Index? I don't know, for how about Penn State? They lost this game. The FVI for Penn State is?
Yeah, so the vibes in Oregon are a 10. I would say the vibes, and this is my very scientific way of coming up with this vibe index for Penn State. I'll say they're like a 7. A 7 out of 10 is a 70%. And in school, a 70% is a C. And your report card will tell you that a C is average. And I think that's exactly how Penn State fans are. If you look at, the totality of what Penn State has done, it is, hey, we're better than the bad teams, but we can't beat the elite ones. Like, we are a good team, but we cannot be elite because we can't beat elite teams. So I think a 7 is, look, yeah, it's better than bad, but it's not elite, just like their football team.
Okay, so you're doing a great job of breaking down where the football team is, but when I think about the vibes, I'm thinking about the fan base right now. And look, if there's ever been a fan, we all have that one friend that walks into the bar, and like, let's be honest, this friend that I'm talking about is like as a 3. But when he walks into the bar or she walks into the bar, the people that they immediately start hitting on are solid 9s, right? Like, that's where most college football fans are. Like, it doesn't matter where their team actually is. They think their team, they think that they are capable of winning the Natty every single time. So the vibes right now, Penn State, the FVI for Penn State fans is like a 1.2 because they just got the realization that, yet again, you can't beat anybody that's good. Like, you can beat some teams, you're going to win some games. Congratulations. Might even go to the college football playoff. But if you've spent the entire summer waiting for your moment to go buy a bunch of national championship Penn State gear, good news for you. You're not going to have to empty that bank account. We just got a reminder that they're not good enough to win a Natty. They're not good enough to win these types of games. They just don't get it done. They're a 1.2 because they're all losing their minds over that realization.
It's Groundhog Day at Penn State. And if you're a Penn State fan and you're just now realizing that, oof. I have some bad news to tell you about the rest of the season because Penn State also plays Ohio State later in the season. Now, with all of that being said, the reason why I don't think Penn State fans, the vibes are in the total, toilet is because Penn State will probably lose that game against Ohio State because that's just what Penn State does. That's just what James Franklin does. They'll lose to Oregon. They'll lose to Ohio State. They'll beat up on Northwestern and Iowa and Nebraska and Rutgers. They'll go 10-2, and then they'll go to the college football playoff, and they'll beat an inferior team that sneaks their way into the playoff. Let's just say Tulane. All love, roll wave. Let's just say Penn State draws Tulane in round 1 of the playoffs. Penn State will get that game at home. Penn State will destroy Tulane. Vibes will be great. They'll play an actual contender in the second round of the playoffs, and look at their butt whoops. Like, that's what this team is. And yes, making the playoff is great. You don't want to be spoiled and acknowledge that making the playoffs isn't a great, success story, that being 10-2 isn't really fun, but it also is a harrowing realization that just might be your ceiling under James Franklin. I never say coaches can't win the big one, but he hasn't, and there isn't any, and he's had ample opportunity to fix this narrative and to change this narrative, and he just hasn't. So while I'm not going to say that he can, I'm just going to say that I'm not going to bet on him to do it.
Right. All of that's logical. I just think you're underestimating how Penn State fans feel about that. I think they think that they're a national championship contender. They'll lose their minds. What about
they should
we'll
feel
go
that
to
way.
Alabama. Well, what about Alabama? The vibes in Tuscaloosa. They just beat Georgia. Now they have Vandy coming in. Where are we on the vibe index for the Roll Tide group?
I'll say Bama's at like a 7.5 right now because nothing writes the course and nothing can get the bad taste out of your mouth after losing to Florida State in week 1, like going into Athens and beating Georgia, a place that hasn't seen a home loss in 33 games, and Ty Simpson looking the way he looked in that game. So I think the vibes should be high. You just mentioned it. Vanderbilt is looming. Don't look now. Vanderbilt's a 16th ranked team in the country, okay? Vandy is not the same Vandy, and this Vandy team is better than the Vandy team that beat Alabama last year. Of course, we'll get into that game and our official predictions and thoughts on that game, but I think right now, Alabama fans' vibes are as high as they have ever been so far this season, but I do still think that the vibes aren't a 10 or a 9 because I think Alabama fans are just holding their breath a little bit. So not something they've had to do very often over the last 25 years.
That's why I actually put the vibes at a 5. Like the vibes for a day after beating Georgia were a 10.
After beating
and then
Georgia?
you woke up it was a 10 for a day. And then you woke up the next day and you're like, I don't know. Look, I just look at social media. I didn't get nearly the trash talking I usually get from Alabama fans after that win. It was like, well, I'm not sure we trust that Caleb guy. Like there's still a little element. Like I think I think Alabama fans are afraid to really unleash. I think they're afraid to unleash. If they whoop up on Vandy, I think we'll see that get into the 8-9 range. But until then,
welcome to what every other college football fan base has done and felt throughout the their existence.
But it's new to them.
Like it's normal to feel excited after a win, but a little apprehensive about what your team can achieve throughout the rest of the season. Believe me, I'm an LSU fan. I live in that mucky middle. I live in that mindset of like, cool, we won, but oh my gosh, I'm really scared. Like, welcome to what every other college football fan experiences.
So what are the vibes like in Arkansas? They just fired Sam Pittman, their head coach. What are the vibes there?
Vibes are like a 3. Maybe I would say a 2, but maybe the vibes are a little bit better after you fired Sam Pittman and you can see some change coming into place and Bobby Petrino takes over as the interim coach. He has completely cleared house defensively. So maybe if you're an Arkansas fan, you're not totally in the dumps because the necessary changes are being made, but man, you just got absolutely clobbered against Notre Dame at home. You lost to Memphis. Like, there's not a whole lot of good for this fan base to hold on to other than the hope that a new coach can come in and fix those things.
Now, that's where I wonder, when he cleaned house, did he ask everybody to leave on a motorcycle? All right, I just had to make that one dig at Bobby Petrino.
It's totally fair. And Bobby Petrino motorcycle jokes will never not be funny.
Thank you very much.
Never get old.
The vibes in Arkansas right now, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I think they're like a 6.5. And this is what's maybe the most surprising to me.
What?
This is why. Hear me out. I was scrolling Twitter X the other day, and our buddy, mutual friend Chris Childers, who works a lot on Sirius XM College Sports Radio, had made the comment of like, you fired Sam Pittman. Like, what did you really think? Like, what coach do you think you deserve? And I watched his mentions get destroyed by Arkansas fans that were consistently telling him, we are Arkansas. Like, that's some reason that you're supposed to be a national juggernaut. Like, I learned over the course of this firing that Arkansas fans have a very different concept of what it means to be a fan of Arkansas football than the rest of us do. Like, I don't want to be the one to break it to them that at best they're just sort of a mid-SEC school that every once in a while will make a pop and people will remember still plays football. I don't want to be the one to break it to them. But I feel like their vibes are high because now they're all like, we got rid of the dead weight. We are going to finally be the Arkansas football team that we deserve to be. I don't know that you can fight Arkansas fans with logic. I've learned that by watching social media replies. So I think they're much higher.
I don't think that's unique to Arkansas. I don't think that
fair.
you can use logic to fight with any college football fans. But let me just state for the record, Sam Pittman is a wonderful person. Like, it was his time. He didn't do enough. It was his time to go. I don't argue with the decision to let him go, but he's the best. I love Sam Pittman. I wish him nothing but the best.
And again, we never root for coaches to get fired on this show. So Sam Pittman will, whatever he does next, he'll be tremendously successful in. What are the vibe index like at Florida State now, coming off of the national Friday night UVA butt whooping?
Whatever the vibes are, the scene from Waterboy, whenever Bubby Boucher is in the hospital and the guy up front goes, oh no, we suck again. Like, what are those vibes? Because I feel like there it is. That's what Florida State fans are feeling, that they still remember 2-10 last season. And then they were like, oh, we beat Bama. We're back, baby. And then you lose to Virginia, and it looked like Squirrel White in the end zone, got trampled by the sea of Virginia students that stormed the field on Friday night. Like, I think that's how you're feeling if you're Florida State. It's, oh no, we suck again. And then now you have Miami.
Yeah, we need to check in with friend of the show, Bert Kreischer, to see how he's feeling about this one. I watched Florida State fans lose their mind that game day elected not to go to Florida State Miami, a shock to many of us, and instead they're going to Tuscaloosa to get Vandy and Alabama. And I'm like, why are you shocked? Right? I mean, I'm sorry, Alabama's coming off of a win. Florida State's coming off of an embarrassing loss. And this is just, I said it before, that Mike Norvell at some point is like, it's like Michael Myers. Every time you think that he's dead, he rises for one more movie. I just think what we learned is that this Florida State season might not be as good of a Halloween movie as we all hoped it would be.
It's an opposite Michael Myers. Just when you think he's alive, he's dead again.
That's a plot twist for Halloween 16 that I can't wait for. I'll still go see it in theaters because I love scary movies that much. I love this show. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. hanging out with you. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Big night of action. We'll get you caught up on all of it tomorrow morning. Hang out with us 9 a.m. Yahoo Sports Daily. Have a great day, everybody.